Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm going to be teaching you a technique that you can use for making any surface look as if it were made out of wood. And all you're going to need is a marker, and one colored pencil. More on that later, but first of all, I want to explain why I've got the YouTube logo here. I thought it would be more interesting if instead of just doing a big hunk of wood, I would have the YouTube logo sort of carved into the wood. That way, kind of teaching two different things in the same video. Now, what I'm going to do is pull out this marker, which is a Copic YR23, is what I see here on the side of it. It is a kind of brown, ochreish brown, and I'm going to start in real time showing you my approach to making long horizontal strokes all in the same direction. Now, one of the good things about using markers can create streaks, like you can sort of see already. I'm kind of getting a streakiness going here. Now, normally I don't like that. I'm trying to avoid that, but with a wood texture, it's actually useful. It works in my favor to have a little bit of streakiness going on here, because that's what you see in the surface of wood very often. So I'm not going to, spend the whole time showing you each one of these strokes of the marker. I think that would be pretty boring, but you get the basic idea, the speed at which I'm doing it. Basically not very fast at all, taking my time, trying my best to do long strokes of the marker, as long as possible, so as to avoid too many breaks in the line. But let's go ahead. I'm going to finish this up in time-lapse, and then I'll be on to the next step in the process. Okay, now this next step in the process is not so much about the wood surface as it is about making this logo look as if it were carved into the wood. And what I'm just going to go in and do is darken in the lettering here, so as to just sort of help convey the idea that it's on a separate level. And one nice thing about the YouTube logo is that it allows me to show not only lettering that has been punched into the wood or sort of carved into the wood, but it's also going to be able to show how to convey lettering that's coming out toward you. Because over here in this area where you see this sort of almost TV screen shaped section, it's not the lettering that gets darkened in, it's everything around the lettering. And so in that case we have the, this letter T won't be an indentation, it will be an outdentation, as I believe I said in one of my videos. In any case, you get the idea of how this is going to work. I'll go ahead and do this in time-lapse, and then we'll be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and filled all that in, and then also added just a little bit of a shadow along one side of the piece of wood. And now I'm pulling out this dark brown Prismacolor pencil. This is the of the style called Very Thin, which is a slightly harder lead and allows greater precision. And what I'm going to do here is begin to indicate some of the grain of the wood. Now, I think those of us who've tried to make something look as if it's made out of wood in the past, you know that there's these sort of circular shapes and then rings that form around those shapes. Well, as I looked at photographs of actual wood grain, and of course there's going to be lots of different types of wood grain, I noticed that there were indeed such circles. Very often they're sort of elongated like ovals. But what was sort of interesting that I noticed is that at one side of each one of these ovals, the darkness, there were sort of dark lines that began to form on one edge, quite clean and clear right along this edge of the circle, but then sort of trailing off as those lines head away from that oval. And that is something that I had never really paid much attention to, but anytime you're trying to replicate a surface, little details like that pay off. Now, watch how I'm going to add now, all in real time, a secondary line fairly close to that first circle, but as it reaches the tip of the oval, it's going to pull away and form a sort of a second oval shape that is a considerable distance. And again, repeating that pattern that I described a second ago, where it's fairly clean on one side, you know, sort of a clear, rounded edge, but then, especially as you near the tip of it, sort of trailing off lines, all of which begin at that circle and then sort of head off until they fade away, basically, to the one side. So the thing to pay attention to, beside that little technique there, is the way that this line is fairly close down here, and I'm also going to get it down here as well, cutting right across this lettering, because it's all carved into the same section of the wood. So you get lines that are fairly close together here, but then it pulls away and it gets a little further away there. And there will even be, I guess I'll start doing this in real time before switching into time lapse, but could even be a third or fourth ring, you know, that's forming around that circle, always going considerably further out, right, in this area near the tip. Okay, so I think you kind of get the idea of what I'm going for there. I'm going to go ahead and take this basic technique and finish off this upper third before I get into a second type of wood grain pattern down here. All right, and you know, before I forget, I should just say that every wood grain, they're like snowflakes, right? No two types of wood are the same, and so what I'm showing you is one particular type of wood grain that I saw and studied, and you know, as you look at even like hardwood floors, you know, you can study those as a good example of wood grain and see, even within a single floor, lots of different patterns and styles. Now, the next one is actually going to be considerably simpler than what we did up here, and that is, I noticed just a pattern of straight horizontal lines that went all the way across the entire piece of wood. Maybe, you know, not to the point of needing a ruler to establish that these are perfectly straight or, you know, perfectly horizontal. But the thing that I noticed in this particular pattern was how close these lines were to one another, how each line was relatively thin, and you know, dark at least to the point where you can see the pattern. You can see one next to the other, and it contrasts. What is it with me in the word contrast? It contrasts with the paler brownish wood between each line. So basically, I'm focusing on keeping each line pretty close to the other, not too thick, and trying to get a certain level of darkness there. Now, some of you may be worried that we're not going to even see the YouTube logo after a while because all of this wood grain is kind of beginning to obscure it or camouflage it. Well, I'm going to come in later on and use different techniques for making this logo more plainly visible. But let me go ahead and finish up this one section of horizontal lines before we get on to the last bit of wood grain at the bottom. So I finished this area of horizontal lines in the middle of the piece of wood, and the last thing I'm going to do is kind of repeat this pattern here, and this is just a sort of a preference of mine. I don't like it if there's a circle here and then I get another one right next to it, just as sort of a compositional preference. I want to get one that's over here sort of balancing that one out, and I thought I'd give it just a little bit of almost a peanut-like shape, not perfectly round. And yeah, this is basically repeating what you see up here, only this time it's first of all you see the entire circle, but it's from side to side, but you don't see it top to bottom. It's getting cut off by that lower edge of the wood. But otherwise, it is pretty much that same pattern with the darkness pretty tight and clean around the edge of the circle, and then trailing off on either side. Well, let's go ahead and in time-lapse finish up this last bit of wood grain pattern. So as I said, the wood grain effect is largely achieved just by way of the one marker and one colored pencil. But for this embossing effect, or making it look like the logo was chiseled out of the wood or carved out of the wood, I am switching to my trusty black Prismacolor to add a little bit of shading. And this comes back to your knowledge of the light source, as so often I do in my videos. I am assuming that the light is coming from the upper left, and that is creating shadows on the insides, or the, I guess, the left and upper edge of each one of these letters. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of this real time, but I will not put you all to sleep by trying to do this entire thing real time. I just wanted to show you, though, that as we apply all of the shading here to the upper left, it's going to get flipped around when we move over to this section here where the letters are popping out. And so instead of, putting shading on the inside here, I'm putting it over on the other side, the right and lower edge of each letter. And that way it all coordinates together to convey this illusion of the whole logo being carved out of the wood. So let's go ahead and do this in time-lapse. I'll use my black Prismacolor here to add all of this shadow work. And then we're going to come back for maybe one last step that's going to help complete the illusion. So all the shading is done now with the black Prismacolor. Now I'm pulling out the white Prismacolor, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding just a little bit of highlight to the opposite edges of all these sections that are supposed to be carved out. And now those of you who've watched a lot of my videos, you know how much I love the white gouache. I am attending White Gouache Anonymous meetings on a regular basis, but I have decided not to use white gouache on this illustration. The reason being, white gouache is really good for super shiny surfaces, like things made out of metal or glass, and things that are highly reflective. I imagine this, this piece of wood may be lightly varnished or something, but I don't want it to be super, super shiny. And that's why, instead of pulling out the white gouache, which would really create these very dramatic highlights with sharp edges and would be very opaque, instead of doing that, I'm using the white colored pencil. And hopefully the final effect is something rather more subtle. It may, unfortunately, make it a little trickier to read the YouTube logo. But anyway, let me go ahead and in time-lapse I'll finish off all of the white Prismacolor highlights, and then we'll come back and have some final words. Alright, well, there's my video on how to create a wood grain surface using marker and colored pencil. I really hope you had enjoyed it. Also, something in there about how to create an embossed effect. I mean, when you think about it, this is really 2 videos for the price one. 2 for 1! You're getting here today at Crilly's Video Emporium. And speaking of buying things from me, I want to thank anyone who supported me by getting my books, Brody's Ghost and Miki Falls, my graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2, my How to Draw books. I really am so grateful to anyone who supports me by getting those books. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. A white colored pencil. That doesn't happen too often. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back with another one real soon.